The Horizon drifted through the silent void, its research mission almost complete. Dr. Kang stood at the observation deck, gazing at the stars when emergency alarms pierced the quiet. "Unknown vessel detected," announced Captain Lee over the intercom. "All science personnel report to briefing room immediately." Dr. Kang hurried through the corridors, his heart racing. After 10 years in deep space exploration, this was the moment he had been waiting for: potential first contact. The briefing room buzzed with excitement as researchers gathered around the central holographic display. A strange crystalline structure hung in space, its surface fracturing and releasing pulses of blue light. "We detected a distress signal," explained Captain Lee, pointing to the vessel. "It's unlike anything in our databases. Definitely not human technology." Dr. Kang studied the readings. "Those energy signatures. They're consistent with biological processes, not mechanical ones. That ship might be alive, or at least partly organic." "We're sending a team to investigate," said Captain Lee. "Dr. Kang, as our senior xenobiologist, you'll lead the mission." 3 hours later, Dr. Kang floated through the airlock of the research shuttle, tethered to the mysterious vessel. 2 security officers followed behind him, weapons holstered but ready. The surface of the alien craft felt warm under his gloved hand, almost like touching skin rather than metal. "The hull seems to be responding to our presence," Dr. Kang reported through his comm. "It's opening." A seam appeared in the crystalline surface, widening into an entrance. The team activated their helmet lights and entered cautiously. Inside, the corridors glowed with faint blue light. The walls pulsed rhythmically, like a beating heart. Dr. Kang's instruments detected oxygen, nitrogen, and trace elements, a breathable atmosphere. "I'm picking up a life sign," whispered Security Officer Min. "Single entity, central chamber." They moved deeper into the vessel, following pathways that seemed to grow rather than be constructed. The central chamber opened before them, a dome-shaped room with a pool of luminescent liquid at its center. Floating in the pool was a being unlike anything Dr. Kang had ever seen. Humanoid in shape, but composed entirely of translucent crystal. Fractures spread across its surface like cracks in ice. Light patterns danced within its form, weakening with each pulse. When the being sensed their presence, it turned toward them. Though it had no visible eyes, Dr. Kang felt seen, examined, down to his cellular structure. "Hello," Dr. Kang said, removing his helmet in the breathable atmosphere. "We received your distress call. We're here to help." The crystal being raised a hand. Suddenly, Dr. Kang's mind filled with images. A beautiful world of crystal spires, billions of beings communicating through light. And then, widespread sickness, crystal structures shattering into dust, desperate research, and finally, this lone vessel sent to find help. Dr. Kang gasped, staggering backward. "Did you all see that?" The security officers shook their heads, confused. "It communicated directly with me," Dr. Kang explained, approaching the pool again. Some form of telepathy. The being's light patterns intensified. More images flooded Dr. Kang's mind. Detailed scientific information about the being's species. They called themselves the Yanhua. They had evolved alongside microscopic organisms that stabilized their crystalline structure. During their early space exploration, these organisms had been accidentally exposed to radiation that wiped them out. Without these symbiotes, the entire Yanhua species was slowly disintegrating. "You're dying," Dr. Kang whispered. The being's lights pulsed in what seemed like agreement. Then it projected one final series of images. Human DNA, examined at the molecular level, containing properties remarkably similar to their lost symbiotes. Dr. Kang understood the implications immediately. "You came looking for us specifically. You think humans can help you." The being rose from the pool, crystal fluid dripping from its form. As it approached Dr. Kang, a piece of its arm cracked and fell to the floor, shattering into dust. "It's deteriorating rapidly," Dr. Kang told his team. "We need to get it to the Horizon immediately." "Is that safe?" asked Officer Min. Before Dr. Kang could answer, the beam projected another image directly into his mind, a process of biological merger between human and Yanwe, creating a stable hybrid entity that preserved both beings. "You want to merge with us?" Dr. Kang asked, stunned. The light patterns pulsed urgently in what he somehow knew meant survival. Getting the crystal being aboard their shuttle proved challenging. Every movement caused more fractures to appear across its surface. By the time they reached the horizon, several pieces had broken off completely. In the ship's medical bay, the beam was placed in a containment field that supported its deteriorating structure. Dr. Kang worked frantically, analyzing the data it had shared with him. "Captain," he reported after hours of research, "this being, she calls herself Nari, represents an entire species on the brink of extinction. Their molecular structure is breaking down without a stabilizing element they co-evolved with." "And how do they think we can help?" asked Captain Lee. Dr. Kang hesitated. Their scientists discovered that human DNA contains properties similar to their lost symbiote. They believe a biological merger between our species could create a stable hybrid form. The captain's eyes widened. "Merger? You mean humans would need to combine with them?" "From what Nari has shown me, both consciousnesses would be preserved in the hybrid form. Neither being would be lost. They would exist together." Across the room, Nari's crystal body emitted a weak pulse of light. A large crack formed down her center. "She doesn't have much time," Dr. Kang said. "And according to her, neither does her species. Billions of lives are at stake." Captain Lee shook her head. "This goes beyond our authority. We need to contact Earth's Science Council immediately." As the communication was established, Dr. Kang remained by Nari's side. Her light patterns grew dimmer with each passing hour. Through fragments of telepathic images, he learned more about her world, their art created through light manipulation, their collective consciousness, their peaceful exploration of the cosmos. "Hold on," he told her, though he wasn't sure she understood his words. "Help is coming." As he watched another crack form across her crystalline surface, Dr. Kang realized that the fate of an entire species might rest in humanity's hands, and the decision would need to be made soon. The Earth Science Council headquarters buzzed with activity as the Horizon docked at the orbital station. News of potential first contact had spread quickly. Security teams lined the arrival bay as Dr. Kang supervised the transfer of Nari's containment unit. "Careful," he warned as the anti-gravity sled wobbled slightly. Any sudden movement could accelerate her deterioration. Dr. Jun, head of the Xenobiology division, met them at the entrance. His eyes widened at the sight of the crystalline being floating in the stabilization field. "Remarkable," he whispered. "Truly remarkable." "She's getting worse," Dr. Kang said. "We need to get her to the main lab immediately." The containment unit was moved to a specialized research facility, where a team of Earth's top scientists waited. Monitors displaying Nari's vital signs showed alarming patterns. The fractures in her crystalline form had multiplied during the journey to Earth. "Can she still communicate?" asked Dr. Jun. Dr. Kang nodded. "Primarily through projected images. It seems only I can receive them for some reason." "Fascinating. Perhaps there's something unique about your neural patterns." The science team worked through the night, analyzing samples from Nari's crystal structure. Dr. Kang barely left her side, trying to learn as much as possible about the Yanwa while they still had time. Through their mental connection, Nari showed him images of her homeworld. He saw vast crystal cities that grew organically from the planet's surface. He witnessed their way of life, how they absorbed energy directly from their twin suns, how they communicated through intricate light patterns, how they shared memories across generations. "They're a peaceful species," Dr. Kang reported to the Science Council the next morning. "Their technology is biological rather than mechanical. They don't have weapons as we understand them." The council chamber was filled with representatives from Earth's nations and colonies. Many looked skeptical. "Tell us about this merger concept," said Councillor Park, her voice sharp with suspicion. Dr. Kang displayed holographic models based on Nari's information. The Yanhua evolved alongside microscopic symbiotes that stabilized their crystalline structure. When these symbiotes were accidentally destroyed during their early space exploration, their entire species began to deteriorate. "And what does this have to do with humans?" asked another counselor. Their scientists discovered that human DNA contains similar stabilizing properties to their lost symbiotes. They believe that a genetic merger between our species could create a stable hybrid form. Murmurs filled the chamber. Counselor Park leaned forward. "Are you suggesting these aliens want to absorb us?" "No," Dr. Kang said firmly. "The merger would preserve both consciousnesses in a shared form. Neither being would be lost. It's more like a biological partnership." "This sounds like science fiction," Dr. Kang scoffed, a military representative. "Or worse, an invasion strategy." Back in the lab, more pieces of Nari's form had crumbled away. Dr. Jun had developed a temporary stabilization field that slowed the degradation, but it was only buying them time. Dr. Kang sat beside her containment unit after another exhausting council session. "They're afraid," he told her, though he wasn't sure she could understand his spoken words. "They don't trust what they don't understand." Nari's lights pulsed weakly. In his mind, he saw billions of crystal beings on her homeworld, all showing the same fracture patterns. Some had already collapsed into dust. "Show me again," he whispered. "Show me how the merger works." The images came clearer this time. Detailed cellular interactions between human and Yanhua biology. Dr. Kang realized the process was more elegant than he had initially understood. Human DNA wouldn't simply stabilize their crystal structure. It would create an entirely new molecular framework that incorporated the best aspects of both species. "Dr. Kang, you need to see this," called a lab assistant, interrupting his connection with Nari. On a microscope screen, human cells were interacting with Yanhua crystal fragments. The human cells weren't dying as expected. They were transforming, incorporating the crystalline structure while maintaining their core function. "It's possible," breathed Dr. Jun, staring at the results. The merger could actually work. The lab team worked frantically to document their findings before the next council meeting. Meanwhile, Dr. Kang received a troubling transmission from the horizon, which had maintained contact with the Yanhua homeworld. "Their condition is deteriorating rapidly," Captain Lee reported. "Their scientists estimate 20% of the population has already been lost." At the emergency council session, Dr. Kang presented their latest findings. "The merger isn't just theoretically possible. We've confirmed it at the cellular level. Human and Yanhua cells can create a stable hybrid structure." "And what happens to the human consciousness in this process?" demanded Counselor Park. According to Nari, both consciousnesses would coexist. The human wouldn't be lost or absorbed. They would share existence with their Yanhua counterpart. The debate raged for hours. Some saw it as humanity's moral obligation to help a dying species. Others viewed it as too risky, potentially threatening human identity itself. "Even if we approve this," said a medical representative, "who would volunteer? Who would agree to merge their entire being with an alien entity?" "I would," Dr. Kang said quietly. The chamber fell silent. "I've connected with Nari. I've seen her world, felt her people's suffering. If there's even a chance, this could save them. I'm willing to try." That evening, protesters gathered outside the research facility. Some carried signs supporting the Yanhua, calling for compassionate action. Others demanded Nari be removed from Earth immediately, fearing contamination or worse. Dr. Kang found his brother, Min, waiting in his office when he returned from the protests. "You can't do this," Min said, his voice breaking. "You're talking about becoming something else entirely." "I'm talking about saving billions of lives," Dr. Kang replied. "Wouldn't you do the same?" "Not at the cost of your humanity." Dr. Kang shook his head. "What makes us human, Min? Our DNA, our bodies, or our capacity for compassion and sacrifice?" Before Min could answer, an alarm sounded. Dr. Kang rushed to the lab to find Nari's containment field fluctuating. Her crystal form was fracturing rapidly. "She's approaching critical deterioration," Dr. Jun said urgently. "We're losing her." As pieces of Nari's form crumbled away, Dr. Kang made his decision. He turned to the council representatives who had been observing the research. "We're out of time," he said firmly. "I volunteer for the merger procedure. Now." Councillor Park stepped forward, her expression solemn. "The council is still deliberating, Dr. Kang." "With respect, Councillor, Nari doesn't have time for our deliberations. If she dies, we lose our best chance to understand how to help her species." As if confirming his words, a large section of Nari's crystal structure collapsed into dust. "I take full responsibility," Dr. Kang continued. "But I will not stand by and watch her die when I can help." After a tense moment, Councillor Park nodded reluctantly. "Proceed with the procedure, but only with Dr. Kang. Document everything. If this works, we'll need to understand exactly what happens." As the medical team prepared the merger chamber, Dr. Kang stood before Nari's failing form. Her light patterns flickered weakly, but he felt her gratitude washing over his mind. "I'm ready," he told her, placing his hand against the containment field. "We'll face whatever comes next together." The merger chamber glowed with soft blue light as technicians made final preparations. Dr. Kang lay on a specialized platform next to Nari's deteriorating crystal form. Medical sensors covered his body, monitoring every vital sign. "Last chance to reconsider," Dr. Jun said, concern evident in his voice. Dr. Kang shook his head. "I've made my decision." Outside the research facility, the crowd of protesters had grown larger. Security forces struggled to maintain order as opposing groups clashed over humanity's proper response to the alien crisis. "They'll destroy us all," shouted one man with a megaphone. "We have a moral obligation to help," countered a woman from the other side. Inside the chamber, Dr. Kang tried to ignore the commotion. He focused instead on Nari, whose light patterns had dimmed to almost nothing. Through their mental connection, he felt her gratitude and fear, not fear of the merger, but fear that she might not survive long enough to complete it. "Begin the procedure," ordered Councillor Park, who had insisted on witnessing the process herself. Dr. Jun activated the chamber. Energy fields surrounded both beings, creating a controlled environment for cellular exchange. A specialized neural interface connected their consciousness patterns. "Initial phase commencing," announced a technician. "Molecular boundaries stabilizing." Dr. Kang felt a strange tingling throughout his body as the energy field intensified. Then came pain, sharp and electric, coursing through every cell. He clenched his teeth to keep from screaming. In his mind, Nari's presence grew stronger. Images flooded his consciousness, memories not his own, sensations he'd never experienced, knowledge of a world he'd never seen. "Neural patterns are merging," reported the technician, voice tight with concern. "Vital signs fluctuating." Dr. Kang's body began to change. Crystal formations appeared beneath his skin, spreading across his chest and arms. His vision shifted, suddenly able to perceive spectrums of light invisible to normal human eyes. "Is he conscious?" demanded Councillor Park. "Yes," Dr. Jun replied, "but his brain activity is unusual. We're seeing patterns we've never recorded before." Inside Dr. Kang's mind, two consciousness streams gradually intertwined. He was still himself, but also Nari. He could access her memories as if they were his own. He felt her relief as her deteriorating structure stabilized within their new shared form. The procedure lasted 3 hours. When the energy fields finally powered down, the medical team approached cautiously. The being on the platform opened its eyes that now shimmered with internal crystal structures and emitted a faint blue light. The skin had a translucent quality, with delicate crystal patterns visible beneath the surface. "Dr. Kang," Dr. Jun asked hesitantly, "can you hear me?" The merged being sat up slowly, movements graceful, but slightly alien. When it spoke, The voice was Dr. Kang's, but with harmonic undertones that resonated in the air. "I am here," it said. "We are here. Both of us." Counselor Park stepped forward. "Dr. Kang, are you yourself?" The being considered this. "I am Dr. Kang, and I am Neri. We exist together now. Neither of us is lost." The medical team ran extensive tests over the next several days. The merger had created something unprecedented, a hybrid being with capabilities beyond either original species. The being could manipulate light, creating complex patterns that carried information. It could perceive energy fields invisible to human senses. Most importantly, its cellular structure was completely stable. The being chose a new name, Sung. Not fully Dr. Kang anymore, not fully Neri, but something new that honored both. News of the successful merger spread quickly, dividing public opinion even further. Some hailed it as humanity's greatest achievement, first contact leading to true understanding. Others condemned it as an abomination, a threat to human identity itself. 7 days after the procedure, Sung addressed the full Earth Science Council. "I stand before you as living proof that our species can coexist," Sung said, voice resonating through the chamber. "I remain Dr. Kang in my memories, values, and core identity. I am also Neri with all her knowledge and perspective. Together, we are more than either of us was alone." "And what do you propose we do with this information?" asked Counselor Park. "The Yanwei are dying," Sung replied. "Millions have already been lost. Their only hope for survival is merger with compatible humans, volunteers who understand what they're committing to." The military representative stood up. "This could be a trick, a way to take over our species body by body." Sung's crystal patterns flashed with what those familiar with Yanhua expressions recognized as sadness. If domination were our goal, why send one dying being in a damaged ship? The Yanhua could have sent an armada. Instead, they sent a scientist, seeking understanding and mutual survival. The debate continued for weeks. Meanwhile, Sung worked with Dr. Jun to refine the merger process, making it safer and less painful. They developed strict protocols to ensure only informed volunteers would participate. Sung's brother Min initially refused to see the transformed being that had once been his brother, but curiosity eventually overcame his fear. Their meeting in Sung's quarters was tense. "You look different," Min said, keeping his distance. "I am different," Sung replied, "but I'm still your brother. I remember when you broke your arm climbing that tree in our backyard. I remember how you stayed with me after Mother died." Min studied Sung's face, familiar features now interwoven with crystalline structures. "Do you regret it?" Sung considered this. "No, I've gained more than I've lost. I can perceive the world in ways I never imagined. And I've saved a life. Neri would have died without the merger. But you're not entirely human anymore. Perhaps being human isn't just about our biology," Sung suggested. "Maybe it's about our capacity for compassion, for sacrifice, for growth." Their conversation was interrupted by an urgent message from the Science Council. After endless debate, they had reached a decision. The Yanhua crisis would be presented to the world, along with a call for volunteers for the merger process. The announcement triggered global protests. Religious leaders questioned the spiritual implications. Nationalists feared the loss of human identity. Scientists debated the long-term evolutionary consequences. But volunteers came forward. Thousands of them. Scientists, explorers, philosophers, and ordinary people willing to take an extraordinary step to save a dying species. The first official merger program began 1 month later, with strict screening to ensure volunteers fully understood the permanent nature of their decision. 20 volunteers were selected for the initial group. As they prepared for the procedure, Sung addressed them. "You are about to embark on something unprecedented," Sung told them. "You will remain yourselves, but you will also become something more. Your sacrifice will save not just individual Yanhua, but an entire civilization." One of the volunteers, a young physicist named Ji, stepped forward. Is it painful? Yes, Sung answered honestly. But the pain is temporary. What you gain is permanent, a shared existence that expands what it means to be alive. As the program began, transmission arrived from the Yanhua homeworld. Their council of elders expressed profound gratitude and hope for the first time in years. The controversial solution had begun. Whether it would save or transform humanity remained to be seen. The merger chamber hummed with energy as Jai stepped inside. 20 similar chambers lined the laboratory, each containing a human volunteer and a Yanhua representative. These crystalline beings had arrived on Earth 3 days earlier, each one showing advanced signs of deterioration. Jai had been a quantum physicist before volunteering. She had studied the process extensively, understood the science behind it. Yet nothing could truly prepare her for what was about to happen. "Are you ready?" asked Sung, who supervised the program. The former Dr. Kang now moved with fluid grace, crystal patterns beneath his skin glowing softly. "As ready as I'll ever be," Jai replied, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The Yanhua assigned to merge with Ji floated in a containment field nearby. Its name was Mira, a scientist like herself. Through preliminary telepathic connections, they had learned they shared a passion for understanding the universe's fundamental laws. Jai lay back on the platform as technicians attached neural monitors to her temples. Across from her, Mira's crystalline form was positioned carefully, fractures spreading visibly across its surface. "Beginning merger sequence," announced Dr. Jun from the control room. The chamber filled with soft blue light. Ji felt a tingling sensation across her skin, then a sudden shock as if every nerve ending had been simultaneously activated. She gasped as foreign thoughts flooded her mind. Memories of crystal cities, the sensation of absorbing starlight directly, complex mathematical concepts beyond human understanding. "Neural patterns merging," reported a technician. "Vital signs stabilizing." The pain intensified. Ji bit back a scream as her cells began to transform. Crystal structures formed beneath her skin, spreading along her arms and chest. Her vision blurred, then sharpened dramatically, suddenly able to perceive spectrums of light invisible to human eyes. In her mind, 2 streams of consciousness circled each other like binary stars, gradually drawing closer. She was still Ji, with all her human memories and identity intact, but she was also becoming Mira, gaining access to thousands of years of Yanhua knowledge and experience. "Ji is showing strong integration patterns," Dr. Jun noted. "Her merger is progressing faster than the others." Around the laboratory, the other chambers pulsed with energy as 19 more pairs underwent the same transformation. Not all proceeded smoothly. In Chamber 12, alarms blared as the human volunteers' vital signs spiked dangerously. Molecular rejection in Chamber 12 called out a medical officer, initiating emergency protocols. Some moved quickly to the troubled chamber, placing his hands against the transparent wall. Light pulsed from his palms into the energy field, stabilizing the chaotic patterns. "Stay with us, Hoon," Sung urged. "Find the balance between your minds. Neither dominate, neither submit. Exist together." Inside Chamber 1, Jai had reached the critical phase of the merger. Her consciousness and Mira's approached total integration. For a moment, she felt lost in the vastness of their combined minds, unsure where Jai ended and Mira began. "Remember who you are," came Sung's voice, somehow cutting through her confusion. "But embrace who you're becoming." Jai focused on her core memories, her childhood home, her parents' faces, the day she received her doctorate. These anchors helped her maintain her human identity, as Mira's consciousness entwined with hers. The merger took 6 hours to complete. When the energy fields powered down, the medical team approached each chamber cautiously. Some of the newly merged beings were already sitting up, examining their transformed bodies with wonder. Others remained unconscious, their systems still adapting to the profound change. Jai opened her eyes, now shimmering with internal light. She raised her hands, marveling at the crystalline patterns visible beneath her skin. When she spoke, Her voice carried harmonic overtones that seemed to resonate in the air itself. I am, here, she said, finding the right way to express her new dual existence. Gee. Dr. June approached carefully. Can you tell us how you feel? She considered this simple question with new complexity. I feel complete. I am still G with all my human thoughts and feelings. I am also Mira with her knowledge and perspective. We exist together now. Over the next few days, the merged beings discovered their new abilities. They could manipulate light, creating complex patterns that carried information. They could sense electromagnetic fields and communicate telepathically with each other. Their cellular structures had stabilized, halting the deterioration that had threatened the Yanhua. Not all mergers had been successful. 3 pairs had experienced complications. 1 human volunteer died when his body rejected the crystalline integration. 2 Yanhua consciousnesses had faded during the process, leaving their human partners with fragments of alien memories, but no true merger. These losses weighed heavily on Sung as he reported to the Science Council 1 week after the first merger group. We established the merger centers in the most populated regions first, Sung replied. The Yanhua Council has prepared their strongest remaining members to assist us. The landing was met with a display of light and color unlike anything the human volunteers had ever seen. Thousands of crystal beings gathered, their weakened forms still capable of creating magnificent patterns that danced across the sky. A traditional Yanhua welcome ceremony. The merged beings responded with their own light display, projected from their hands and bodies. The human volunteers watched in awe, many seeing for the first time what they might soon become. A Yanhua elder approached Sung, its crystalline form heavily fractured. They communicated through light and telepathy, the elder expressing profound gratitude. They feared their entire civilization would be lost. Sung translated for the humans present. They see our arrival as the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy about renewal through unity. Within days, 5 merger centers were established across the planet. The process had been refined during the Earth phase, with higher success rates and less pain for both participants. Human volunteers were carefully matched with compatible Yanhua partners based on psychological profiles and molecular compatibility. Min, Dr. Kang's brother, had surprised everyone by volunteering for the mission. After months of opposition, witnessing his brother's transformation had changed his perspective. Now he stood in a merger chamber, facing his Yanhua partner, a historian named Ta. "Are you afraid?" asked Jira, who supervised his procedure. "Yes," Min admitted, "but sometimes the right choice isn't the easy one." The merger began. Min felt the now familiar pain as his cellular structure began to change. In his mind, Tae's consciousness approached his own, not invading, but offering connection. Min had been prepared for the physical transformation, but the mental merging still took his breath away. Thousands of years of Yanhua history flooded his awareness, their peaceful evolution, their art forms based on light manipulation, their collective achievements. He felt Ta's joy at finding a compatible partner, and beneath it, the deep sorrow of watching their species slowly die. When Min opened his eyes 6 hours later, he saw the world through new senses. Colors had depths and dimensions he'd never imagined. He could feel the energy patterns flowing through the crystal structures around him. "Welcome, Minta," said Jira, using the merged name he had chosen beforehand. Minta stood carefully, adjusting to his transformed body. "It's overwhelming," he said. His voice carried musical harmonics that hadn't been there before. "It gets easier," Sung assured him. "Your minds will find balance." As the merger program continued across the planet, the Yanhua world began to change. The merged beings discovered they could repair the decaying crystal structures that formed the planet's cities and ecosystems. Using abilities neither original species possessed alone, they could reshape raw materials with thought and light. 3 months into the mission, over 1,000 successful mergers had been completed. The planet showed visible signs of renewal. Crystal formations glowed with restored brilliance. Communication networks pulsed with vibrant light once again. But not all Yanwei embraced the merger solution. A small faction believed it meant the end of their pure existence. They retreated to remote regions, preferring to face extinction rather than transformation. We should respect their choice, some told the hybrid council when they discussed the issue. We offer salvation, not forced conversion. The merged beings had begun developing a culture of their own, neither human nor Yanwa, but something new. They created art that combined human emotional expression with Yanwa light manipulation. Their scientific understanding accelerated as human creativity merged with Yanwa collective knowledge. Jira led a research team that made a breakthrough discovery. By studying the unique molecular structure of merged beings, they developed a method to stabilize remaining pure Yanwa without requiring merger. It won't grant them the abilities we have, she explained to the council, but it will halt their deterioration. Those who wish to remain purely Yanwa can survive. This discovery transformed the mission. What had begun as survival through merger became a true choice. The remaining Yanwa could choose either path, stability through treatment or enhancement through merger. 1 year after their arrival, the Earth vessels prepared to return home. Half of the merged beings would remain on the Yanwa world to continue the healing process. The others would return to Earth as ambassadors of this new hybrid species. On their final evening, the merged beings gathered at the Crystal Spire, the highest point on the Yanwa world. There, Sung addressed them. "We came here to save a dying species," he said, his voice resonating through the crystal structures around them. "Instead, we've created something new. We are neither human nor Yanwa, but something greater than either alone." Minta stood beside his brother, watching the twin suns set over the restored crystal landscape. "I never imagined anything like this when I opposed the first merger," he admitted. "Few could have," Sung replied. "We had to experience it to understand." In the valley below, newly merged beings were teaching pure Yanwa and unmerged humans their unique light language, a communication form that bridged the gap between species. Children from the human delegation played among crystal formations, marveling at their beauty. "What happens next?" asked Minta. Jira, who had joined them at the overlook, smiled. "We've received transmissions from 3 other species who have learned of our merger. They're fascinated by what we've achieved, not just technologically, but culturally. We've demonstrated that different forms of life can do more than coexist. They can unite." As the last light of the twin suns faded, the merged beings began to glow, their crystal patterns illuminating the gathering darkness. Together, they created a light display visible from orbit, a message of hope that spread across the stars. On the journey back to Earth, Sung stood in the observation deck, watching the Yanwa world recede behind them. What had begun as one dying alien's desperate plea had transformed 2 species and created a third. "We didn't just save them," he thought, feeling Nari's consciousness agree within their shared mind. "We saved ourselves from the limitations of being only one thing, seen through only one set of eyes." Ahead lay Earth, where humanity would face its next great challenge, understanding and accepting these changed beings who had once been fully human. But Sung felt only optimism as the ship accelerated toward home. The true salvation had not been merely biological survival, but the expansion of what it meant to be alive.